This is a playground that my brother, sister, and I used to play in almost every day, like 10 years ago, when we used to live here in Parma, Italy. And we'd also spend a lot of summers before then. So it's really weird to be back here for the first time in a really long time. I was completely wrong about the Canon R8. What's going on, guys? Chris here. Welcome back to another video. And in today's video, we're talking about the Canon R8, which for $1,500 is probably one of the best cameras you can get for photo and video. Now, I did talk about this camera before it was released in not such a positive way, but actually having used it over the past few days, it's really great. Now, if you're a Canon user, this is actually the cheapest camera I would actually recommend. And if you use Sony, then this is pretty comparable to the Sony a7C. It has a full frame 24 megapixel sensor for about $1,500. It can shoot 4K video up to 60 frames per second, actually downsizing that 6K sensor into 4K. So the 4K is very sharp. It shoots 6 frames per second mechanical shutter, even though technically it doesn't have a mechanical shutter. But if you want really fast shooting, it can go up to 40 frames per second with the electronic shutter. But first, let's talk about the body and let me express what I think about it. So the first thing I noticed was the size and weight. This is a very small and light camera compared to the Canon R5, which is a camera I've been using for the past few years. And handling the camera has been really nice because when you're trying to vlog or if you're trying to shoot for long periods of time, having a heavier camera can be quite strenuous. So having this lighter body feels amazing. It comes with the traditional flip screen we like to see, the viewfinder, and the Canon buttons, which seem to always move around, which is kind of weird. Canon, please pick a side for your power button and pick a side for your mode switch. It's kind of weird going back and forth and having buttons on opposite sides. But besides that, I have no real complaints. The R8's body feels really small in the hands, which some people will like, some people won't. For me, I don't have the biggest hands and it feels pretty good, but I would say that if it was just a little bit longer on the bottom, I wouldn't mind, because sometimes when I hold it, my pinky is just kind of dangling here. But I do see they sell battery grips for it for that exact reason. Now, obviously having a smaller body is amazing, but it comes with two main drawbacks. One is the battery. Battery is Canon's LPE17 battery, unlike the LPE6, which is what they use on their bigger bodies like the Canon R5 and most of their prosumer bodies. And because of that, the battery life isn't great. It's about an hour, a little bit over an hour if you're shooting 4K video, but you can shoot for several hours if you're just taking pictures. But if you're gonna be using this as your main body, you're gonna definitely need to purchase more batteries depending on what you shoot. But fortunately, you can charge and use the batteries through USB-C. So if you plug your camera in, you can shoot forever or charge your batteries. And that's just amazing, because I really don't know why Canon still sells these really outdated chargers. I feel like all cameras should charge via USB-C or something more modern. Now, the second drawback you get with this smaller body is the lack of IBIS, as in in-body image stabilization. So the sensor does not shift around. It's a fixed sensor inside. And if you want any sort of stabilization, you're gonna have to use digital IS, which ends up cropping into the image. So I never like to do that, or use lenses that are stabilized. So if shooting handheld is one of your main ways of shooting, then keep in mind, this isn't a stable camera. We have been spoiled with these modern day IBIS systems, and having a camera without IBIS feels kind of weird. Now, in terms of media, this camera sports a single SD card slot. So if you shoot something that you're afraid you're gonna lose the media and you wanna shoot with 2 card slots, this is not the camera for you. Only one, only SD. Realistically, I have never had any corrupt files ever, and I've only shot with 1 card, whether it's on my R5, this camera, RP, R6, whatever the camera was, and I've never had a problem with it. So for me, having 2 card slots isn't super important, but if it is for you, then yeah, this isn't the camera for you. So let's talk a little bit about this sensor. Now, this is the 24 megapixel sensor that I think is being used for the Canon R6 Mark II. So it's a very high quality sensor, and as you can see from the photos and the videos, it's amazing. From a photo standpoint, I don't really like the fact that there's no actual mechanical curtain. Not only do I like hearing that sound, but I don't like having to shoot in electronic mode if I want to shoot faster, because when you use an electronic shutter, you can get these weird artifacts and it's just not as professional looking. And not only that, but you don't really get anything protecting your sensor when you take the lens cap off like you do with the R5. As with the R5, when you turn it off, it protects the sensor with the curtain. But in terms of photo quality, the photos are sharp and crisp. There's really nothing wrong with them, as you would expect from a modern day camera. Realistically, guys, if you are doubting the image quality of pretty much any camera being released in the past 5 years or so, then you really need to change your priorities. The images are going to be detailed and sharp. What really will change is what lenses you use, so don't worry about the image quality. And that also goes for video. I shot some 4K video side by side, even with the Canon R5, and with some tests it's even hard to tell which is which. Shooting at the same 4K at 25 frames per second in C-Log3, the images are pretty comparable. I think that if you want a B camera to your R5, this could definitely do the trick. Now the dynamic range and color should be pretty similar to the Canon R5, if not the same. This is the 4K downsampled from the 6K sensor. The R5 is technically 8K downsampled to 4K, so the R5 is a little bit sharper, maybe not, but I'm pretty sure this is more than fine. It's definitely going to be sharper and better quality than regular 4K. Now this can shoot up to 4K 60 with that same downsampled image, which means technically the 4K 60 in this camera is sharper than the 4K 60 of the Canon R5, because that does use the line skipped version. This only shoots in IPB and not all eyes, so it won't run as smoothly in weaker computers, but I have the M1 chip and I'm pretty sure it'll work fine with any modern day MacBook. So you can't go wrong with the image quality. I was shooting some 4K 60 handheld and it looks amazing, especially spend the time to color it. The dynamic range seems to be pretty good. Canon's never been the best with dynamic range, and I think if that's your most important thing, then you should definitely go for Sony, but the image quality is very good out of it. The colors are great, and I feel like this is an amazing B camera or even an A camera for someone who isn't super professional. That said, even professionals I think could use this. If you use some sort of gimbal to stabilize your footage, because the biggest problem I think is without the IBIS. That's pretty bad. But that said, I think we're really spoiled. 90+% of cinema cameras don't have IBIS, and that's just normal. So having such a high quality full frame sensor in such a small body is amazing. Another amazing thing is that there's no record limit as there is in the Canon R5 and some older Canon cameras. Canon, please, through firmware, if you can, do this with your other cameras. I know you're not watching this video, but it's annoying to have the 30-minute record limit on this camera when this one doesn't have one at all. I never had a problem with overheating. I let it record for hours straight and the battery died way before I got any serious heat warnings from the camera. Another thing to keep in mind, yeah, the autofocus seems to be really great. It's the same autofocus system that I think is being used in the Canon R3, which is even better than the one in the R5, so no problems with any of that. And I feel like this is the camera that the EOS R should have been to compete with the A7 III, which was the competitor of the R5, you know, that full frame 4K. It doesn't even need the 4K 60. Now that this has 4K 60, that's amazing. But it's just a beast of a camera. I definitely recommend it paired with Canon's cheap RF primes like the 24 and the 35. I'm using the 35 right now, and I'm absolutely loving these lenses. It keeps the weight very light, and it's just amazing to use. Actually, let me do the final thoughts with this camera. Okay, so to give you my final thoughts, I think this is an amazing camera, and if you're able to look past IBIS and the battery life not being amazing, I think this is the best Canon camera and one of the best cameras you can get for this price. If you're a content creator or whatever and you want to upgrade from your phone, this is something I would highly recommend because it'll get you a much better quality image than any phone. I've seen the 15 Pro, I have an iPhone 15, even the 15 Pros, amazing with the ProRes, but there's something that you can't get out of an iPhone, like a professional camera when you use professional lenses on it, and it just looks great. So thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully this video was informative to you, and I'll see you guys in the next video. All right, peace.